Welcome to the Environmental Health and Safety Virtual Classroom. I'm your instructor, Derrick A. I'm an environmental consultant and industrial hygienist with 27 years plus experience in the recognition, evaluation, prevention, and control of hazards in the built environment. In this session, we're going to discuss wildfire smoke. Fires happen, structure fires happen, and wildfires happen. All fires produce byproducts. Wildfire smoke is a byproduct of the combustion of organics like forest fuels, as well as any homes or structures that may be in the path of the wildfire. The type of materials burned and the temperatures at which these materials burn generally determine the types of compounds that are in wildfire smoke. Wildfire smoke is a complex mixture of particles, liquids, and gases, including but not limited to polynuclear aromatic hydrocarbons or PAHs, carbon monoxide, aldehydes, organic acids, semi-volatile organic compounds or SVOCs, volatile organic compounds or VOCs, free radicals, ozone, particulate matter of a variety of types like soot, ash, or char, etc. Many of the wildfire smoke constituents are reactive or are easily dispersed into the atmosphere. They don't persist for more than, say, minutes or hours or days. PAHs, carbon monoxide, organic acids, free radicals, ozone, generally don't stick around very long. Some wildfire smoke constituents are persistent, weeks, months, perhaps even years. That would include things like particulate matter, soot, ash, or char, or inorganic fractions of particles. Wildfire smoke can contain respirable particulate matter. For example, coarse particles measuring up to 10 microns in diameter, or fine particles measuring smaller than 2.5 microns in diameter. For reference, a human hair cut in half, or the cross-section of a human hair, measures about 60 microns. And about the smallest thing you can see is around 80 to 100 microns, which might be a small dot on a piece of paper. 10 micron particles, or PM10, can deposit in your upper respiratory tract. But smaller particles like PM2.5, particulate matter 2.5 microns in size or smaller, can travel deeper into the lung and are generally retained within the lungs. Most wildfire smoke particles are smaller than 2.5 microns. In fact, they're often smaller than 1 micron. Although particles are small, often smaller than 2.5 microns, keep in mind that particles can agglomerate or condense into larger particles. So a fire occurs and produces smoke, and that smoke dissipates into the air. And eventually, some of those particles may deposit. They may deposit on horizontal surfaces. They may plate out onto vertical surfaces, electrostatically, for example. But those particles are generally outdoors. But sometimes those particles can come into the structure. And that's where your population is. That's where your staff are. That's where your residents are. Once these particles deposit on horizontal and vertical surfaces, they can remain on those surfaces, or they can be re-entrained into the air depending upon the activity inside of your building. They can be distributed with your building's ventilation system or just natural air movement. Indoor inhalation exposures are possible from the initial onset or infiltration of smoke particles or the potential re-entrainment or resuspension from disturbance. For this reason, wildfire smoke can degrade the indoor environmental quality even after the outdoor smoke has cleared. Fine smoke particles can penetrate homes and businesses even when buildings are closed and even when the HVAC system is turned off. All buildings ventilate, either mechanically or naturally. Air is exchanged from the outdoors to the indoors. There are some places that are more easily penetrable by particulate, such as doors and windows. These are openings to the outdoors. Obviously, in the event of a wildfire, it would be sensible to close your windows and to close your doors. But there are other holes in your building that you may not be aware of, such as your outdoor air intake on your HVAC system. It makes sense also in the event of a wildfire with smoke concentrations building in your area, that you may want to close your mechanical systems so that you don't bring in purposefully outdoor air that is contaminated with smoke. This ounce of prevention measure, by closing your doors and windows and closing your outdoor air intakes, will help to limit the exposure to the bulk of wildfire residues. But remember, these changes must be temporary, and you have to remember to switch them back after the smoke has cleared. Outdoor air is a requirement and is an important part of your indoor environmental quality maintenance. I addressed the importance of outdoor air in our session on HVAC systems and indoor air quality. Besides the obvious closing of windows and doors and turning off or excluding your outdoor air inlets, what other things can you do? What other ounces of prevention are available? Well, you can deactivate exhausts. Remember, all of these measures are temporary, but janitors' closets and biohazard rooms have exhausts. Those fans should remain on. But if you have other exhausts in your building that are not mission critical, you can deactivate those so that your building is not under negative pressure. By closing your outdoor air intake, you limit your building's ability to be positively pressurized. So you want to reduce the amount of exhaust where it's feasible and where it is safe. Additionally, you want to avoid activities that depressurize the building that you may not be considering on a regular basis. For example, your kitchen exhaust hood. If you can limit your kitchen exhaust hood use during a wildfire event, you will not depressurize the kitchen or the room surrounding the kitchen, which would cause outdoor air to then be made up into the kitchen, drawing in wildfire smoke. If you're cooking with a gas stove, you obviously need a kitchen exhaust. So perhaps you change your meal plan so that you don't need to use the kitchen exhaust during the time of a wildfire event. Even something as simple as your clothes dryer. Your clothes dryer takes air from inside your building, which is conditioned and clean, and moves it through the dryer and out of doors. But for every cubic feet of air that leaves the building through the clothes dryer, a cubic feet of air comes in from the outdoors somewhere in your building, either through a window, a door, an outdoor air intake. Clothes dryers depressurize the zone around your laundry room. And this is something that you can limit, if possible, during a wildfire event. HVAC filters generally only protect your equipment. They're not really designed to protect the indoor environment for occupants. But you can increase your HVAC filter exchange rate, and you can increase the MERV rating, or the efficiency of your filters, as long as you follow the manufacturer's specification. During a wildfire event, it might be sensible to more frequently change your filters and to upgrade your filters to the maximum allowed by each of your specific air conditioning systems. Be sure not to use a filter that is too tight, or you may damage or otherwise impede your HVAC system from functioning properly. Consider the use of freestanding HEPA filtration or air filtration devices, AFDs, or even freestanding normal filtration devices. These will help reduce the particulate loads inside of your building, and they can be deployed or removed as needed. If your facility is located in or near the urban wildland interface, then you likely already have wildfire addressed in your Hazard Vulnerability Assessment, or HVA. This also means you will have established protocols, procedures, and vendor relationships related to wildfire in your Emergency Operations Plan, or EOP. The importance of establishing vendor relationships before the fire cannot be underestimated. Relationships with industrial hygienists, relationships with emergency vendors like restoration companies are critical before the fire, because when a fire occurs, everyone in your region is going to be clamoring for those resources. You want to be first on the list. You want to have people dispatching to your site in an instant, not negotiating contracts at 2 a.m. on a holiday. It's important to protect your building from wildfire smoke infiltration, whether you have evacuated and eventually will repatriate your building, or whether you're sheltering in place. In both cases, you're going to want to use strategies to minimize the amount of smoke that enters your building. How do you know that your building is acceptable for occupancy, whether you're repatriating from an evacuation or whether you're sheltering in place? Indoor environmental testing is available. Particle counting, particle testing, respirable dust testing, even surface quality testing after an event are all available to help you determine, is your building ready for occupancy or not? Does your building require cleaning or is it acceptable? Every building is different and every fire is different. Sometimes the fire is 10 miles away from you and sometimes it's right at your back door. Sometimes your building or structure gets burned and sometimes it's only residual smoke from surrounding wildfires. The way that you address the cleaning or remediation of settled particulate, of airborne particulate, and the way you address odors is going to be unique to your building and your situation. For example, if 50 acres around your building burned, then your building may smell like wildfire, not because of the particulate within your building, but just because of the exchange of air with the outdoors. As an industrial hygienist, I've seen many buildings, and the easiest buildings to clean following a wildfire are those that have non-porous surfaces. I recognize that I'm an advocate against porous surfaces like carpet, for example. It's much easier to clean wildfire residues or other environmental hazards off of things like vinyl sheeting or ceramic tile over carpeting or drapery. I recognize that soft goods, porous goods, often provide benefits that are intangible. They give a homey feel to your facility. They also absorb sound and attenuate echo, but cleanable surfaces are cleanable. And so if you're concerned about the potential for wildfire or other environmental hazards that may be present in your building, non-porous surfaces are the way to go. Remember too that wildfire smoke residues are not only in places that you can see, but they're in places that you may not be able to see. So walls and floors and desks are easy to clean. Don't forget that your HVAC system has surfaces that may or may not need to be cleaned. When wildfire smoke particulates enter your building, they're normally coming in on high energy air and moving through some opening into your building. But very quickly after entering your building, that air loses its energy, and most of the deposition of your wildfire particulates are going to be at or near the opening. For example, window weep screeds, door thresholds, etc. Focus your cleaning efforts, particularly your initial cleaning efforts, on these penetration points. In most situations, when you begin your cleaning, you're going to start on one side of the building and move laterally to the other side of the building. Very often with wildfire cleaning, it makes sense to start with the perimeter of the building and work your way towards the more protected center, which should have less deposition as compared to the perimeter penetration points. The strategies that you employ to prevent wildfire smoke from entering and impacting your building will vary, but remember that they should be temporary. If you close your outdoor air intake on your HVAC system, remember that you need to have a note to reopen them when the air is clear. It is not uncommon for us to come to buildings 2 years after a fire event and find that the outdoor air intakes are still in the closed position. Outdoor air is critical for maintaining a good indoor environment. But in a wildfire situation, it makes sense to close them. Remember that these are temporary measures. Wildfire smoke should come as no surprise. We live in the urban wildland interface. Because it's not a surprise, you should have very well thought out preparations for the reduction of wildfire smoke infiltration and for addressing wildfire smoke after the fire. Your awareness, your preparation, such as your emergency operations plan, and your chosen vendors are keys to successfully navigating the wildfire smoke hurdles you will encounter.